Now, another African nation where Gen Z protests have triggered chaos is Morocco. After days of protests calling for education and health reforms, violent clashes erupted in the North African nation on Tuesday. Hundreds of young protesters clashed with security forces across several Moroccan cities, including the capital Rabat, where reportedly dozens of young people were arrested as they attempted to chant slogans. As per media reports, in the cities of Tiznit, in Zangan, and Ait Amrira, as well as the eastern city of Hoja and the Temara near the capital of Rabat, hundreds of young protesters hurled stones at security forces attempting to disperse the gatherings. Security forces were seen using water cannons on protesters and extinguishing fire on the streets. Dozens of protesters have been arrested since the demonstrations began last week, and reportedly many of them were released later. The protests have been organized by a group named Gen Z 212 via social media platforms like TikTok and Discord. Young protesters have been rallying against corruption and the government's misplaced priorities. Young Moroccans have blasted the government for pouring money into international sporting events at the cost of public infrastructure. The North African nation is preparing to co-host the 2030 FIFA World Cup. So far, it has built at least 3 new stadiums, and at least half a dozen others are being renovated or expanded. Now, later this year, Morocco will also be hosting the Africa Cup of Nations. Protesters have asked the government to focus on providing better education and health care to the people instead of building new stadiums. Morocco's human rights body and opposition parties have condemned the crackdown on protesters, calling it an attack on free speech. In response to the widespread protests, the country's ruling coalition released a statement on Tuesday. The government said that it was listening to and understanding the social demands of the young protesters and was ready to respond positively and responsibly to the situation. But the anger among the youth is rising, and at the core of this growing discontent are social inequalities that have hit the young people and women the hardest. Recent reports of the deaths of 8 pregnant women at a public hospital in Agadir have further fueled public outrage. Earlier this month, the survivors of the 2023 Morocco earthquake also held protests in the capital, demanding the government to rebuild their homes as promised. Just like the protests in Madagascar, demonstrations in Morocco too mirror the youth-led movements in Nepal, Indonesia, Kenya, and Nigeria. And the one thing in common in all of these protests is a learning for the people in power. And that lesson is suppressing the voice of the youth will only prove to be counterproductive for their leaders.
Firstpost now available in 9 languages on YouTube. English,
$36 trillion.
French,
Le FMI, comme
German,
Geschäftsführenden Direktor,
Hindi,
$30 trillion kakarjo.
Indonesian,
Pemerintah tanpa pemeriksaan.
Italian,
Kali radikali.
Japanese,
$4
Portuguese,
por causa do próprio balanço patrimonial.
Spanish.
Beautiful bill.
Go to Settings, click on Audio Track and select the language of your choice. Be the first to know what's happening around you in your first language. Firstpost.